Hey everyone, it's Grady from SUBOVERLAND, and in this video, I'll be going over why I chose a Suburban to be my overland vehicle. Let's get right into it. Alright, so I made a video like this. I was looking on my YouTube channel today. It was like 4 years ago where I made a video that was kind of similar to this. So I thought I'd kind of revamp, 3 or 4 years later, what are my thoughts on the Suburban still. So when I initially made the video, I think I was maybe like a year or two in to building these things out. And I mentioned, a lot of different things, but I still have the same opinion on a lot of those, or on most, and even more so. So let's just get right into my list here. Reliability, that's my number one I put on here. So these vehicles, just in general, the Suburbans are extremely reliable, and that can definitely be argued depending on the vehicle. There's, different fans and different, cult followings of different vehicles, and I get that. And a lot of people will, say, for example, I think Toyota is probably like the most commonly used, vehicle of like, hey, what car should I get? Get a Toyota. That's definitely the most common, at least I've seen throughout the years. These GM vehicles that I'm talking about, it's not, all of GM. I'm specifically talking about, the GM full size. And so our Suburbans that we build out, our most common has been the 2000 to 2006 Suburban, so that year range. And then probably second behind that, I guess if you look at it as a whole, has been like 92 to 99. And even more specifically 96 to 99. So we're talking, mainly about those, but now we are getting into the next gens, 7 to 14, 15 to 20. And so, take all of this just as, in general, the Suburbans are an extremely, reliable vehicle. The reason I have that opinion is, a couple things. One, you guys may have heard this, but I was a FedEx contractor before I started doing SUBOVERLAND. And during that stint at FedEx, I had a couple routes. And on those routes, I had Chevy Express vans or the GMC Safaris. Safari? No, not a Safari. GMC Savannah. Sorry, Safari is like an Astro van. So I had the Savannahs and the Express vans. And those, I cannot tell you how reliable those, it was just insane how reliable they were. The drivers that I had, bless their hearts, but it's just rough on the vehicles. There's just tons of stop and go, hard conditions here in Idaho, weather, list goes on. And these vehicles, I honestly cannot remember one breakdown where I had a driver out there in the middle of nowhere and I had to go save him. So they were just so reliable. I had them consistently getting over 400,000 miles on original drivetrain, which is just so impressive. So they had the 4.8, the 5.3, and the 6.0 engines. And then the transmissions, back then it was just the 4L60 transmissions. And honestly, yeah, 400K, pretty easy. And, there's some highway miles for sure, but just a solid drivetrain. So I was, thinking, well, what's another drivetrain like this? The Suburban. So I guess that's the first reason of why I, have the opinion that they're super reliable, is because I maintained all those vehicles and they were driven hard and they lasted a very long time, hundreds of thousands of miles. It's a pretty good test, I thought. And then since, starting SUBOVERLAND, it's it like shocks me. It's crazy. So I've bought, what are we at? I mean, a couple hundred of these dang things. So I've bought a couple hundred Suburbans over the years. And when I buy the vehicles, they come in varying conditions. And because we come and do the inspection, fix them up, do all that stuff. I have not once broken down on the way home on, buying a vehicle. And again, I'm buying them in varying conditions. They just run. There's very few things that I call showstoppers that are just gonna stop these things in their tracks. A fuel pump's gonna do that, and a couple things like that. But they're just so dang reliable. It's wild. It's mind-boggling to me actually that I haven't at least broken down one time on the way home. It's crazy. So reliability was the number one when I started this business. Why I wanted to, get into it, because I felt solid with the product itself. I think GM did a great job with their full-size SUVs throughout all of the year ranges, and I still hold that opinion today. And this is kind of the same route, but longevity. A lot of vehicles, they're built to break, or they're built to last a certain amount of time, or things start to break on them. And Suburban is not immune at all. There's certain things that are going to break. There's certain even mechanical things that have known to be issues. They are far from perfect. I'll get that out there. Interior things, cosmetic things, plastic. Sometimes they'll have some paint issues. All of that. So that's definitely there. But as far as going the distance, Suburban, it is hard to beat it. It really is, especially with the price. My personal Suburban that you see actually Sarah driving, that one has over 300,000 miles, and it just keeps on chugging along. It's wild. I would hop in that thing and just drive it. Original engine, transmission's been replaced, but I mean, it's crazy. So the longevity of these things, if you just want to buy a vehicle where you can just maintain and it'll just keep on going, Suburban to me it's really hard to beat. Third reason I had here was maintenance cost. Every used vehicle you buy is going to need maintenance. That's just what happens. And that's up to you how much maintenance you do, how you do it, where you do it, if you do it yourself. So all of those are variables. So all of those can be variables, how you do your maintenance and all that. But just a flat line, just overall, how much it's going to cost to maintain a vehicle throughout, say a yearly maintenance cost. Again, I think it's super hard to beat the Suburban. Stuff's going to happen. It's a used car, and I don't have like a 10-year warranty or any type of warranty with these vehicles. They're 20, 30-year-old cars. That's just the nature of the game. But just as a blanket statement there, maintenance cost, there's very few things that will scare mechanics on these. Actually, really none at all. Really, I can't think of one thing on the Suburban that a mechanic is going to be like, oh, send that to the next guy. There's plenty of those things on other vehicles where if I'll say no to it at my shop. If something comes in and I'm like, sorry, I'm not your guy. The Suburban, most mechanics are like, bring it on. Like, I've done a lot of them. I know what I'm doing with them. And you can get this work done in, small towns or whatever if you're on the road. So maintenance cost as a whole is definitely low. And then on top, that's just regular maintenance. And then if, catastrophic costs, let's say your engine, your transmission, transfer case, differential, some of the bigger components of the vehicle, say they just go out. Stuff happens. I've had it happen before. You can walk into any auto parts store and they will have, a rebuilt engine that's like a, day out of shipping, or they even stock them sometimes. They're just a really common engine that a lot of vehicles, the platform, they just sold these really well. And so even bigger items, like I just mentioned, are extremely cheap compared to, for example, Toyota stuff or Lexus or even Ford and things like that. GM really did a good job with keeping parts costs down and some of those, the bigger, rebuild engines and things like that. So maintenance cost, number 3, it's there. Purchase price. These, again, as a whole, Suburbans, they are really affordable when they're used. They really, it's not like a Toyota, they'll hold their value more, the Toyota tax and stuff like that. GM really doesn't have that. So it's a good idea in my mind to buy an older GM vehicle when it's, depreciated, a decent amount, and pick it up for a good deal. As a whole, they're definitely affordable compared to similar options of the same years. If you, put out, for example, like 08 Suburban with 150K and then an 08 Sequoia with 150K. Same options, same, stuff like that. The Suburban's going to be half the price, I would say, most of the time. So you'll save, quite a bit of money, 5,000, 10,000, sometimes, around that, just with the purchase cost. So that was another reason why this was attractive, the Suburban, because I could pick them up for, good deals, and then I could refurbish them and still pass on the savings to our clients so they're not in this, crazy expensive vehicle. Our vehicles, when we send them out with, the full build with all of our wooden cubbies and the big package solar panel and bed and refrigerator, all of that, our average price, I think, is still around $20,000. So when you're looking at, an Overland vehicle that's built by a company, 20K, around 20K, it's kind of hard to find, I think. And I wouldn't have been able to do that with another platform. Next reason I had on here was utility. So if you know anything about the Suburban, it's pretty big, the size of the car and the interior space. Any car that you can put, a full sheet of plywood in, that's a good sign that it's, a big vehicle. And because of that, you can do a lot of different things with it. So the utility of the Suburban, I think, is, way up there. When I see utility, I'm kind of mashing up interior space, the potential for, up to 9 passengers. If you have a big family or friends or whatever, you can get up to 9 passengers in these things with the, 3 bench seats. Even in the newer vehicles, I've seen even, up to like 2020, they did a jump seat in the front. So, and they may even still be doing it. I'm not sure. But so it's really like a family, friendly vehicle. I grew up in a Suburban. Many of you probably did too. It just feels right. It feels at home. But the utility of them, you can throw all these kids in there, and then behind the third row seat, unlike a lot of vehicles nowadays, there's actually cargo space behind the third row seat. Fancy that. And so you can throw all the stuff in. I mean, I only have 3 kids, 4th on the way, but I can't imagine having a crossover, honestly. Maybe we just have too much stuff, but by the time, when you're going skiing or camping or whatever, having all that room behind that third row is clutch. And so fitting stuff in there, like I said, plywood, you can move people. Last time we moved, I had like a square body, like a 70 something Suburban, and we moved in that thing. So I did a couple loads. It was just in town, but I put so much stuff in that dang thing. It was wild. And so they really just have a lot of cubic feet inside. And then the other aspect of that, their towing ratings and how much they can tow. Suburban, the standard comes in a 1/2 ton, and then you could also find 3/4 ton versions of the Suburban. And so depending on, if you're towing a trailer, work, like trailer or whatever, big heavy loads, we would tow a car hauler with ours. And so if you're in the trailer game, the Suburban's great. The towing capacity, I don't know exactly offhand, but they came in varying gear ratios. The 3/4 ton versions, came up with up to an 8.1 liter V8. Like this, just wild. The different V8 options that they came with. So I think that's a huge plus with the Suburban, how they're just utilitarian. Next reason, off-road capability. Now, these are by no means like some Jeep Wrangler on 37s. They're never going to be that unless, I guess, if you really mod. Ours aren't, and that's not the goal of it. The way we set them up are with 33-inch tires with a very minor lift. We're going over more comfort than, clearance and off-road capability. But with, Forest Service roads, obviously gravel roads, off-roading. I've been to Moab a couple times in ours with some decent, trails. They'll do it. They're built for it. And, you're not going to be able to, like I said, put giant 37s on these things without breaking stuff. That's just not what they're built to do. But the way we set them up, clients are happy. Most of our clients aren't, like off-roaders. They're more, overland or just, camping and stuff. So it's more of a comfortable vehicle. But if you need it, the 4-wheel drive capable is just great, especially if it's like snow or mud and things like that, where you don't need as much clearance as like with rock crawling or lockers or front and rear lockers and things like that. They do great. So like ski rig, just mountain rig, like I said, with Forest Service roads, all of those handle it great. You can put a locker in the rear. We do we've limited slips that we can, put in, or they came from the factory with that to help out. We don't do anything in the front differential, but it is a locking transfer case, and most of them have a high and low range. So you have that low range. So that's kind of checking the box for me as far as off-road capability, and it's definitely enough. The next thing I had on here was the size. So we kind of talked a little bit about being, utilitarian with the size, but also people think they're bigger than they really are. That's a big apprehension with some of our clients. They've never had a vehicle this big, and after they have it, they fall in love. It drives all right. Like it doesn't feel like you're driving like a big tank or like a giant Sprinter van or something like that. It's definitely more stealth than a lot of the other, vehicles out there you can choose for, overlanding or camping and things like that. And then the interior, although, it's not, big as far as, standing room and things like that, it's plenty for, a couple, to sleep on the bed together, or, a single person, or, heck, we slept 4 or 5 people in ours once, with our kids and everything. And, I camp out of it with my kids. So it's just like a perfect size in my mind. And there's a perfect amount of room to do storage. And, so it checks the box there as far as size. My last one I'll kind of hint on here, and it might shock you, but the economy / range of these. So yeah, it's a V8 and it's not a Prius. You're not going to be getting 40 miles a gallon, right? You're not really supposed to in this type of vehicle. But I would say for how big and heavy the vehicle is, and like I mentioned, the utility and all of that, it is extremely fuel efficient. And the reason I say that is because you can say you've got, the family, you can fit 9 people in the thing. So if you look at that, if you calculate that out per person, that's a pretty economical car. I usually get, around 15 miles a gallon with the modified, depending on the year. The newer, the Suburban, the better fuel economy that they got. Fancy that. Most cars are doing that nowadays. Suburban's no different. But with, in town, in the winter here, you're going to drop down to the, around 13 even sometimes, just because of, cars in the winter and stuff. But you'll get up, I've gotten up to about 22 miles per gallon was like one of my best tanks, I'd say. And so to me, that's fantastic. Maybe you've different opinion on it. And another reason why I believe that that's cool is because you can weigh these things down. You can put as much gear in them. You can do whatever you want, and they're still just always going to get around the same fuel economy because of the V8 and the nature of the gearing and all of that. When you have an underpowered car, for example, like, a V6 Tacoma or something like that, these guys will weigh them all down and they drop fuel economy like crazy. Even with our mods, the Suburban still sticks around right around the factory spec, which I think is, really, really cool. And, no roto packs needed, none of that because, again, factory spec, if you stay close to factory spec, you don't need external gas tanks. You don't need, more gas. You see a lot of these Overland builds where they're spending like thousands and thousands of dollars on these like, auxiliary fuel tanks and things like that because their fuel economy is dropping down because of all the added weight. And then Suburban, you have to mess with that. It's just baked in to what it is, stock, which is great. The older Suburbans, 99 and earlier, had 44-gallon tanks. So that's pretty impressive, right? So they had the big fuel, 41-gallon tanks. They had 41-gallon tanks. And then, so you could get, 600-mile range out of 15. And some of those popped, close to 20 miles per gallon too. So you could get almost up to 800 miles on a tank with a car that big. Newer ones are hovering right around 31-gallon tanks. And so not as good, as range as before, but you're still right around that 400 range. Whereas a comparable vehicle, like I said, like Tacomas or even the Sequoias and stuff, their fuel tank capacities are in the 20s usually, and they get poorer fuel economy than the Suburban as a whole, I would say. And so you're looking at 200 to 300 mile ranges sometimes, which it's not everything, but I really like having a good range. And so the economy is my last one. So, sorry, long video. I've been talking a lot here. I don't even know how many minutes I've been going, but in review, and I'll end the video here, reliability, longevity, maintenance cost, purchase price, utilitarianism, or the utility of the vehicle, off-road capability, the size, and then the economy and range. For all of those reasons, I think the Suburban is still a great option to Overland, and not a ton of people out there, I would say, are, hopping on, but, it's out there, and it's definitely, a good option for you guys. So if you guys are interested in a Suburban, or you have any questions on your current Suburban, or you want us to do some work on your current Suburban or whatever, or you just want to know our inventory, we usually have 20 to 30 vehicles. Around 20 vehicles to choose from. And so I can send you that list, and you can, if you want to reserve one, you can. So that's kind of how we do it. But again, Suburban, I've had awesome experiences with them, and our clients have too. And definitely, thank GM for making a good product there. But if you guys like this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next video.